Hello, my name is Matt Heine, and this is my Week 7 video reaction video. Alright, jumping in. Um, so is question number 1, is sampling a form of copyright infringement? Well, if you Google the definition of copyright infringement, and I got this off of copyright.gov, pretty reliable source from the government, they define copyright infringement as I quote, a general matter, copyright infringement occurs when a copyrighted work is reproduced, distributed, performed, publicly displayed, or made into a derivative work without the permission of the copyright owner. So that's the definition. So going back to, is sampling a form of copyright? It could be yes and no here. Yes, if you never got permission from whoever made the original work that you are sampling from, but then no, if you did get granted permission from whoever owns the work and who owns the sound of that work. So it could be a yes and no. It's really just dependent on if you got permission or not from the original owner from where the sample came from. Let's see here. So kind of going off of this videos that we watched, so for Biz Markie, he's a pretty good example of where his sampling was indeed copyright infringement. The example that was displayed in the video that we watched was with his song "Alone Again," where Biz Markie just kind of took Gilbert O'Sullivan's hit song and just used it as kind of a backtrack for his song that he then put on top of it. This ended up going all the way to court, and the main complaint was that Biz Markie just mimicked Gilbert O'Sullivan's song to too much of an extent that it subtracted away from the original value or meaning of O'Sullivan's true purpose of the song. So when the judge finally ruled on it, or had a saying for it, he said that Biz Markie's actions were pronounced to be biblically incorrect to sample without permission. So, sample with permission, don't just steal. O'Sullivan in this case saw Biz Markie as a thief of his work, and so that's why it kind of blew up to what it did. But you know, when looking at hip hop culture in general, a lot of it, you know, going way back, you know, into Coolio and Grandmaster Flash and all that, the OGs of this game kind of founded this whole style of music based on sampling, and with the disc jockey and the DJ checks and you know, record skipping, sampling kind of gave rise to a whole new genre of music. So back then it was all, you know, no one was getting permission for it. They were kind of just pulling here, pulling there, making their what they would call like their own unique sound. And they brought up the question of, you know, how can you own a sound? You know, they saw music as taking all these various different sounds and putting like your imagination, your own creativity into it to derive a work out of it, and then that's music. And so when you sample from various, you know, sound bits and off of various sound tunes, it's just kind of a tool of your trade. And they would argue that that's of such a tool cannot be owned. It's kind of just general property at that. So going on, second example, how copyright or how sampling would be a form of copyright infringement. From the video again, I'm quoting Mia Garlic here from the Creative Commons, and it sounds like Mia is pretty familiar with the sampling industry and what goes on and the protocol that's needed for going about sampling and whatnot. And I'm quoting her when she says, "When you're going through the rights clearing process, you need to identify all people who own all potential elements of any particular sample and make sure that they agree to what you want to do." So there, she's just saying, you know, you need to go out, if you're going to sample someone's music, you need to go out, you need to find the person who made the music, the person that owns the sound of the music that you're trying to sample, and get permission from both the song holder and that sound holder as well. So it just sounds like a bunch of hoops to go through, especially if you're, you know, you're kind of new to the whole market and you're really just trying to get your name out there and just mash something up and throw it together and hope it sounds good, and that's kind of your style. if you got to jump through all these hoops, it's kind of a lot of stuff to go through just to make a song and to hopefully get your name out there. So let's see. So why is it such a process? You know, that's just another question I kind of had come up through my head. And what I come to find was that the industry has made it such a process in order to keep some honesty within the game of it all. You know, like Clyde Stubblefield said, the famous drummer, he said, you know, you can play me a 2-second snippet of my song, but you would have to tell me like that's me for me to like to understand it's me. You know, I can understand like over a whole song, I can hear it out and recognize my true sound, but to just play like a 2-second sample of it, it's really hard to identify and like put a label as like that's mine on it. So when you sample and you're just pulling out like little bits of snippets, it's really hard to tell, you know, like if that did come from another song. So by requiring that you go out and get permission from the rights holder and the song holder, you kind of instill an honesty into it. And so even if you do pull just like a 2-second sample out and put it into your own music, you're still kind of giving credit to like the source of where the sound came from. So that's kind of why I came to a conclusion as to why it is such a process and why they make you jump through all these hoops. Is it's just to kind of keep some honesty, and just like anything, you know, you need to cite your sources. And so that's kind of just one way of them citing their sources. Cool, so going on to the second question. Give at least one hypothetical solution to the problems illustrated in the film that would be fair to those wishing to sample and those who create the original copyrighted material. So one just real quick basic solution I thought of that could solve this would to just you know, include a credit list of some kind with the publishing of the final product. Whether that be a CD and you just have a credit list kind of in the back panel on like a little slide that just has a list of like where all your sampled music came from, the people that you worked with, coordinated. I know that they still have that in a lot of CDs, but you know, maybe just to expand it to provide for all the samples, it could be a win-win for everyone there. And then another thing I was thinking would be to kind of put like a time frame on music. So after a certain X number of years, once the song becomes released and available to the public, it goes out, it gets stamped on with an ownership stamp of some sort to it. And then, like, let's say for like 20 years. So 20 years goes on, whatever sample or derivative work comes off of your own work, you have all exclusive rights to. People want to sample your work, they got to come to you and get permission. It's just like it always been. But then, like, after 20 years, you know, I mean, I would argue that music changes to such a great degree, and past music influences future music to such a huge extent that it's kind of needed. Sampling is needed in some realms to keep the industry going and thriving. So maybe after 20 years, you kind of open source the music, begin to like open it up and take the restrictions and the ownership of it off. Like you would still own it, your name would still be associated with it, but as far as sampling goes and other derivative works to come off of it, it's kind of fair game. So like once you reach this 20-year threshold, your music gets put into a category or you know, a database that just has all this kind of older music on it that then just becomes open source and available to the public. It's still attached with your name, but then, you know, the public can use it as far as sampling rights to create new types of work. So that's just a couple ideas I had for how those who want to sample and those who want, you know, their rights preserved could possibly work together. You know, going back to hip hop, you know, so many groups kind of got their rise due to sampling, and hip hop in general, you could kind of be accredited to like the sampling culture. You know, back in the day when rap was still good, you had groups such as like NWA, you know, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, all these guys out here just sampling left and right, and Biz Markie, you know, he got in trouble for it, but everyone back in the time was doing it, and it really gave a rise to kind of what the hip-hop culture came to be, and a whole variation of music derived off of that as well. So that's my video reaction for the Unit 7 material. Yeah, thanks. Catch you later.